I was halfway through reviewing a set of finance reports when my phone buzzed with a message that made me freeze. "Hey sis, borrowed one of your cheap necklaces for tonight's date. Emma loves when I wear something shiny. Don't worry, I'll bring it back." At first, I thought I misread. I blinked at the screen, certain my tired eyes had scrambled the words. But no, my brother Daniel had just casually confessed to letting himself into my apartment, rummaging through my jewelry box, and taking something he thought was worthless trinket jewelry. The problem was simple. I don't own cheap jewelry. I left my office chair so fast it tipped back and nearly hit the floor. My heels clicked sharply against the hardwood as I rushed to the bedroom. My heart hammered harder with every step, dread blooming in my stomach. I yanked open the jewelry box sitting on my vanity. Most of my everyday pieces were still there. The pearl earrings my mother gave me on my 18th birthday, the gold chain I wore to the office, even the delicate vintage bracelet from our grandmother. But the small compartment lined with midnight blue velvet, empty. That was where I had kept the sapphire. The Ceylon sapphire necklace was one of the rarest pieces I had ever commissioned. A 16-carat stone, flawless clarity, mounted in platinum and surrounded by over 8 carats of diamonds, a masterpiece that had taken nearly half a year of design, sourcing, and painstaking craftsmanship. I whispered the appraisal number under my breath as if reciting a prayer. $2.1 million. Daniel had just walked out the door with it. Thinking it was costume jewelry. My hands shook as I picked up my phone. I typed a short reply. "Have fun." Then, before panic could take full control, I called Anthony Reynolds, head of private security for my company. "Anthony, it's Alexandra. Report of theft. Inventory number 7735, the Ceylon sapphire." He went quiet for a beat, then muttered, "A curse. That's the necklace you signed out for appraisal photos." "Yes," I said tightly. "It's gone. My brother took it." Anthony didn't waste time. Within minutes, he was coordinating with LAPD, sending them the item details, serial numbers, and insurance logs. I forwarded Daniel's earlier text where he bragged about taking Emma to Maison Levant, the French restaurant on 5th Street, for their 6-month anniversary. By 7:15, I knew the police would be waiting before the entrees arrived. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring blankly at the city lights through the window, my phone clutched in a white-knuckled grip. Daniel thought I worked in a jewelry store. He thought my loft apartment was rented on credit cards, that my 10-year-old Prius reflected my real financial state. He had never asked how I traveled, why I worked such long hours, or how I could loan him money at the drop of a hat. He had never asked because he didn't care to know. And now his ignorance had turned into felony theft. 20 minutes later, my phone rang again. The caller identified himself as Detective Alvarez. His tone was clipped, professional. "Miss Morgan, we have the necklace secured and your brother in custody. He insists the item is fake." I closed my eyes. Of course he did. When I arrived at the precinct an hour later, the Friday night chaos was in full swing. The lobby was a blur of noise and motion. Drunken tourists in handcuffs, a woman loudly arguing about a parking citation, the smell of stale coffee lingering in the air. A uniformed officer led me down a hall to a cramped interview room behind the glass. Daniel sat at a table in his pressed shirt and tie. He looked smaller than I'd ever seen him, like a teenager caught shoplifting gum instead of a grown man who had just stolen a necklace worth more than most houses. When I entered, his head snapped up. "Alex, thank God. Please tell them this is a misunderstanding." I sat across from him, folding my hands on the table. My voice was calm, too calm. "What kind of misunderstanding, Daniel?" He shifted in his seat, eyes darting. "The necklace. They're saying it's worth millions, which is insane. It's just some cheap thing you keep in your room." I leaned forward. "And why did you think that?" "Because," his voice faltered, "because you're not rich. You work in a store. You drive a beat-up Prius. You live so normal. I pulled my phone from my bag and turned the screen toward him. The homepage of Regent Looks Jewelers filled the display. My face. Beside the logo, the words Alexandra Morgan, CEO and Creative Director. His jaw dropped. That's you. That's me. The company isn't some shop down the street. It's mine. Grandfather left it to me 8 years ago, and I built it into one of the most prestigious jewelry houses on the West Coast. Daniel's face went pale. His mouth opened. Closed. Finally. Oh my God. Alex, I had no idea. No, I said quietly. You didn't, because you never asked. Detective Alvarez explained the charges in a measured voice. Felony grand theft. A maximum sentence of 3 years. Daniel's head snapped toward me, horror dawning in his eyes. Prison for borrowing. I was going to give it back. You walked into a crowded restaurant with a necklace worth more than $2 million to impress a girl. I said, you exposed it to theft, loss, damage. You didn't ask permission. That's not borrowing. That's stealing. Tears pricked at the corners of his eyes. Alex, I'm sorry. I swear I didn't know, and for once, I believed him. But ignorance doesn't erase consequences. I told the detective I wouldn't press full charges on one condition. Daniel would work for me 6 months minimum wage. Starting in the workshop, polishing raw stones, cataloging inventory, carrying trays under lock and key, he would learn the value of what he had taken, hour by hour, blister by blister. When I laid out the choice 6 months in my company, or court, he accepted without hesitation. The months that followed changed him. I watched my brother, once careless and self-absorbed, struggle to adjust to the discipline of the atelier. He sanded metal until his hands blistered. He measured stones until his eyes ached. He sat in endless security briefings, learning why each movement was logged, why every safe required dual authorization, why one careless slip could cost millions. He began to understand. The day the sapphire necklace sold to $0.3 million to a discreet private collector, Daniel was the one who carried the paperwork. He had been part of every stage: inventory, security clearance, the client meeting. He signed off on the final transfer himself under my supervision. When it was done, he looked at me with something raw in his expression. Alex, he said softly, I'm sorry, not just for the necklace, for never seeing you, for never asking about your life, for assuming you had nothing worth respecting. For the first time, I believed he meant it, because sometimes the most expensive lessons don't come with dollar signs. They come when someone you love finally sees you, truly sees you for the first time.